When Manchester United announced the signing of Antony in the summer of 2022, it felt like one of those seismic transfers that was going to reshape the club's future. Here was a young Brazilian winger straight from Ajax, handpicked by Erik Ten Hag, carrying with him a reputation for flair, trickery and big game moments. But then more than anything else, he carried with him a staggering price tag, close to £86 million. That number alone changed everything. It transformed Antony from a promising young player into a lightning rod for criticism before he even stepped onto the Old Trafford pitch. The weight of that price tag cannot be overstated. Footballers talk about it all the time, about the pressure, about the scrutiny, about fans and media magnifying their every move. But when you're the most expensive export in Eredivisie history, when your transfer fee is larger than what many clubs spend across the entire season, it creates a narrative. Like every misplaced pass isn't just a bad moment, it's £86 million wasted. Every missed shot isn't just unfortunate, it's proof that you weren't worth it. And that was the storm that Antony walked into at Old Trafford, and it set the stage for everything that had followed. At first, though it seemed like Antony might just silence the doubters, his debut against Arsenal at Old Trafford was like a dream. He scored, celebrated with his arms wide in that trademark swaggering style, and looked like the new jewel in United's crown. The fans erupted, pundits praised Ten Hag for getting his man, and there was this little brief window where people believed United had found their new superstar, a left-footed Brazilian winger cutting in from the right. There was something about it that just felt exciting. For a moment, it looked like the hype might have been justified. But football's cruel, and I say it in a load of videos. The Premier League is even crueler at that. And very quickly, cracks began to show. The first problem people noticed was predictability. Antony had one move that everyone could see coming. Pick up the ball on the right wing, cut inside onto his left foot, look for a curling shot or a switch of play. That was the pattern, over and over again. It worked at Ajax because the Eredivisie gave him space. Ajax's system created overloads and defenders weren't as capable to shut down those moments. Yet in England, though fullbacks figured him out within weeks, they showed him down the line, forced him onto his weaker right foot, doubled up on him when he cut inside. Suddenly, Antony went from looking like a creative genius to looking like a one-dimensional winger. And once fans see you as predictable, it's hard to shake that label. This predictability was made worse by the tactical mismatch at Manchester United. At Ajax, Antony had thrived in a possession-heavy system, where rotations and overlaps gave him constant options, but at United, the system was muddled. Like sometimes they did try to dominate the ball, and other times they just relied on counter-attacks, but rarely did they offer that kind of structure that made life easier for Antony. Too often he was left isolated on the wing, staring at two defenders with no overlapping fullback and no midfield support. In that setup, when he lost the ball, it wasn't just his individual failure, it was the failure of a team that didn't play to his strengths. But fans didn't see the tactical nuance in real time. What they seen is a winger who cost a fortune, failing to beat his man, and that perception quickly becomes the reality. Once the perception sets in, the media storm hit, in England anyway. Once the press and the pundits decided you were a flop, they don't let you go. Antony became an easy target. His statistics were dragged out weekly, his highlights reduced to compilations of poor shots and misplaced passes, and that infamous moment that crystallised us all was that 360 spin trick in a Europa League game, followed by a hopeless misplaced pass after that. That clip went viral, not as a showcase of flair, but as a symbol of arrogance without substance. From that point on, Antony wasn't just underperforming, he was a running joke. And the thing about being mocked in football, that it digs deeper than simple criticism. It becomes part of your reputation, something you can't outrun. What we didn't see, at least not until much later, was how much this was affecting Antony off the pitch. In 2025, he gave an interview where he admitted that during his lowest points at United, he would go days without eating. He said he couldn't even play with his son, that he'd lost the desire to even step on the pitch. That's not just a player in bad form, that's a young man completely consumed by pressure, criticism and self-doubt. It's a reminder that behind the numbers and the headlines, these are human beings dealing with very real struggles. For Antony, it wasn't just about failing to justify a transfer fee, it was about losing himself in the process. Then came the arrival of Ruben Amorim at United, and with it, another twist. Amorim made it clear almost immediately that Antony wasn't in his plans. Across 15 games, Antony managed just 252 minutes of football, less than 1/5 of the available time on the pitch. Most of the appearances came as late substitutions as well, moments where he was expected to change a game without rhythm or, confidence. Amorim even publicly suggested that Antony's struggles were down to physicality, that perhaps he was better suited to La Liga. Antony's agent, Junior Pedroso, hit back, saying that Antony had never been given a chance at United. But the reality was simple. Antony's Manchester United career was effectively over. On top of all of this, the financial aspect loomed large. United weren't just dealing with an underperforming player, they were dealing with a player who cost them millions every year, under amortization rules. Antony's transfer fee was being spread over the length of his contract, meaning around £17 million per year were tied to his name. That was money United couldn't spend elsewhere. And when you combine that with his lack of output, he became not only a sporting problem, but a financial one too. And then, just as it seemed Antony might disappear into the shadows of a failed transfer, came a surprising twist: a loan move to Real Betis. From the very start, it looked like a rebirth. At Betis under Manuel Pellegrini, Antony wasn't weighed down by the price tag or hounded by the English press. He was simply a footballer again. And within weeks, he was scoring and assisting, looking like the confident, lively winger fans remembered from Ajax. 3 goals and an assist in his first 4 games. That basically told the story, and by the end of the season, he had 9 goals and 5 assists in 26 matches. And he played a huge part in helping Betis reach their first ever European final. The fans adored him. They gave him the nickname Antonio de Triana, connecting him to a famous district in Sevilla. And perhaps most importantly, Antony himself said that he felt like he had found a piece of himself again. At Betis, he wasn't the £86 million man. He wasn't the punchline, he was just Antony, playing football with joy and freedom. That change in environment reminded everyone of a truth we had forgotten. Context matters more than anything. A player can look finished in one system and brilliant in another. The difference isn't necessarily the player, it's the fit. And the contrast between his time at United and his time at Betis is the key to understanding what went wrong. At Old Trafford, Antony was trapped in a whirlwind of pressure, tactical confusion and media hostility. But at Betis, he was trusted, supported and allowed to be himself. Same player, different story. And now as we stand in mid-August 2025, Antony finds himself at another crossroads. His loan at Betis is over and he's technically a Manchester United player again. But United have already made the decision clear. They want him gone. Permanently. He's been told to accept one of the transfer offers on the table before the Premier League season begins, or risk being frozen out until January. Betis want him back, but their finances make it complicated. Bayer Leverkusen have also had a look, which could mean a reunion with manager Erik Ten Hag, who believed in him the most. Meanwhile, United have reinforced their forward line with new signings like Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo and Benjamin Sesko. There is no place for Antony at Old Trafford anymore. So where does that leave us, and also him? In truth, Antony's story is still being written. He will likely always be remembered as a flop at United, a transfer that symbolised the club's chaotic spending and lack of planning. But beyond the label, there is also a story of a player who battled personal demons, who suffered under crushing performances, and who managed to rediscover himself in a different environment. That redemption does matter. And what went wrong for Antony wasn't a simple case of lack of talent, it was the combination of unrealistic expectations, tactical misfit, media hostility and personal struggles. But what went right for Antony at Betis shows that he isn't finished yet. He still has talent, he still has fight, and in the right environment, he can still make an impact. And maybe that's the lasting lesson of his career so far. Football isn't just about ability, it's about context, trust and the human being behind the player. Antony's time at United was a nightmare, don't get me wrong, but his time at Betis showed that there's still hope for something more. His next move will define which version of Antony the world remembers. For now, the story of Antony is a cautionary tale of pressure and expectation, but also a reminder of resilience. What went wrong for Antony might one day be remembered as the chapter that led him to rediscover himself. And if that's the case, then maybe, just maybe, the best Antony is still yet to come. That's my thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.